look, man, I just turned 40 and I feel better than I was in my 20s. You know, like,
wow.
It's one of those things. If I knew that had the knowledge that I have now, like when I was wanting to be an MMA fighter, I'd be like, oh man, I just know the pieces better.
What was your biggest takeaway of running a gym business?
Basically being present for people, making them feel like you're part of this team. I tell you how many times someone has walked in through those doors and they didn't look the way they look. And now you see them, you're like, damn, wow. Don't take life too serious, man. You've heard all those stories of people that like, they're so fucking highly driven, they crush it, they do this and that, and then they have a heart attack when they're 49. Because they're just so stressed out. Yeah, it is a humble beginning. I was broke, didn't have any money. The person that believed in me was Aubrey Marcus, and for that, I'm always be thankful.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Nichols and Dimes Show. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. Today, our guest is Juan Leija. Juan is the owner of the iconic Onnit Gym in Austin, Texas, and one of the early team members of Onnit Supplement and Fitness brand, alongside Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus. Juan has a fascinating and exciting story of coming from not much and growing his career with the Onnit brand, becoming an entrepreneur throughout all of that, through his strength coaching and fitness training business, and running such a well-known gym with a powerful community. We talk about the journey of Onnit, acquisitions, business impact, personal impact of each step along the way, changes in management, what Juan learned from running a gym business, how he learned to build a community, his unconventional approach to fitness, which is something that Onnit is known for. There's a big focus on untraditional devices like kettlebells. I ask him about biggest entrepreneurial lessons learned in general and challenges, how he structures his programming, and his heightened focus on longevity through mobility, strength, and conditioning. This was such a cool and inspiring conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Juan. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Thank you for being here. Please check out the Nichols and Dimes Show on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Follow Nichols and Dimes and Nichols and Dimes Show on Instagram. And now please enjoy the episode with Juan Leija. What's up, Juan?
Going good, man. How are you, Chris?
Man, thanks for having me out here in your place in Austin. This is awesome.
Hey, man. Glad you could make it down here, man.
Yeah, man. It's you got Onnit Gym and you got a gym in your garage just for fun, huh?
I would say for fun. I think it's just just I got to keep the mind right, so I got to get my own space where I can get after it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, well, we're going to get into the story of your early days with Onnit and Aubrey and the whole squad and the Onnit Gym, what the strategy is there. There's so much cool stuff there that you shared with me from your background and on this journey, and that I'm interested in learning more about, and that really fits into what I like to focus on this show, which is entrepreneurship in the world of health, wellness, fitness, or pro sports. So I'm excited to talk with you. And Onnit, of course, is just an iconic brand in general in Austin, and it's gotten so much bigger over the years.
Yes. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I think just because the background story is so interesting and all the different steps of where all this came to be today, I think it'd be good just to hear about your version of the Onnit as a brand and Onnit Gym founding story. And you can walk us through that story, and then we'll get into some of the details.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so start off like the way Onnit started, obviously was started by Aubrey Marcus. He was the founder. And then, they had a small team that they were getting going. I kind of came in when the small team was already rolling, but I was working for Aubrey as his assistant. And then at the time I was doing personal training at Gold's Gym. And I was going to school to be a physician assistant. That's kind of what the route that I thought I was supposed to do, like, oh, this is going to pay money. It's going to take care of the bills. Take care of my debt, my student loan debt. So that was kind of the route that I was going. And then at the time when Onnit, it was like, year one of Onnit. I remember riding in the car with Aubrey, and Aubrey was like, oh man, you don't want to do that. Like, you want to stick to training. You're really good at it. Yeah. And then he's like, you know what, man, just start training people out of my garage. And so he gave me the ability to believe in myself, and something that I really love because he saw that in me. And for that moment, I stopped training at Gold's Gym, not right away, but I was kind of training people at Aubrey's garage and then Gold's Gym. And then it kind of just started training people out of the garage at Aubrey's, got a lot of exposure with different people, connection, community. And then when he moved out, he left, basically told me hey man, you can have all my gym equipment from the garage. Literally gave me a whole gym setup. And then at the time, obviously, I was fucking broke, I was I didn't have any money. And, me and my brother rented a house. And obviously through that, Aubrey was helping us out with this. I was his assistant. My brother was working at the warehouse and Onnit. we're kind of just doing a little bit of the jobs, but we were able to rent a house. And like I said, when I say it, I was broke, like I was a college student, no money, anything like that. So I was honestly staying on my aunt's couch. And then when I wasn't staying on my aunt's couch, I had a little trailer that I would stay at, and with like no restroom in the trailer, literally. Damn. I would have to like drive to my aunt's to go pee. If I needed my own space, I would go stay at the trailer. But it was either my aunt's couch or I was sleeping in that trailer. So
dang, so pretty humble start, huh?
Yes, it was. Like humble start in that beginning. Obviously my dad and my mom gave me everything growing up. Like they did a great job of kind of raising me. But in that transition period, we ran into some family issues and like stuff that happened. And in that time when Onnit was starting and I was trying to finish school and all that, it was really tough. It was a tough transition of like what I'm gonna do, and that's why like physicians said, oh well, this will make me money, I'll help my family, do this and that. Yeah. And Aubrey was the one that believed in me and like, no man, you got to stick to training. So yeah, to say that it is a humble beginning. Yes, I was like I said, I was broke, didn't have any money. The person that believed in me was Aubrey Marcus, and for that I'm always be thankful. He gave me a gym space. Then he gave me basically gave me the equipment for me to open up, have my own gym in my garage. So that's why I have the garage gym, because it kind of goes transition. Like I always have to honor that, like the bones of like where I started. I started out of a garage, like that's how the business started. Yeah. And we used to call the garage at Aubrey's El Garaje. Because we had like MMA fighters, we had, personal training, kind of things that we were doing. We'd go roll there, we'd do striking, then we'd do lift weights, kind of like a mix of things. Yeah. So Garaje had turned into like my garage gym at the house that, me and my brother were able to rent. And then I was training people out of there. I was training, man, I had a bunch of girls that I was training, primarily females, but I had some males as well. And, I could tell like my neighbors would see like, man, this guy has like
all these girls.
Like all these people just come into his like garage, like nonstop. I was hour to hour, like back to back, just training people, which was crazy looking back at it now, but it was that hustle that like kind of like motivated me to do it. Yeah. And at the time as I was doing that, I was also Aubrey's assistant. So I was helping her out, but it was just like Onnit stuff or just personal stuff and things like that. And I was going also like, I was broke, or getting myself on my feet. So I still had to go to Onnit and like, I would do like shifts at the warehouse where I'd be like packaging kettlebells and like boxes. That shit. And like, to be honest with you, that was hard. Like back in the day, the systems of that. Yeah. Lifting these heavy ass boxes of kettlebells and putting them in boxes and shipping them out was no easy task, but it was great that I went through it. Yeah. And in that process, as Onnit was growing, it's kind of evolving and growing. Obviously, Joe Rogan being a part of it kind of boosted it so much. And in that process, Onnit was able to move from like a really small office space to a bigger office space. And, that was over 10 years ago. And then when they got that bigger office space, Aubrey Marcus was the one that like, hey man, let's go tour the new office, man. I want you to go check it out. Look at it. And he's walking around the whole office and like showing me all the rooms. This is going to go there. This is going to go there. And then he takes me into the back space, which was like a pretty good sized room, big sized room. And he's like, hey man, check this room out. What do you think of it? And I was like, oh man, this is nice. This is a good space. He's like, Juan, it's your gym. This is your gym. Like you're gonna be the Onnit. This is gonna be the Onnit gym for the employees. Like order some equipment. And obviously at the time Onnit was starting to grow, but they didn't have like an unlimited budget or anything like that. So he's like, dude, just order like, like the basics, like keep it within like a, certain like price point. And so I was able to order a bench. Obviously we got kettlebells. We had, maces, clubs, all that stuff. Ordered some jujitsu mats and, the rower, obviously Concept 2 rower has been a big staple into like my training. Order a Concept 2 rower, treadmill, use the air bike. So I've been using those pieces of equipment forever. It's kind of like a staples in my training. But that was how I first started Onnit. Before Onnit Gym was Onnit Gym, it was the Onnit employee gym. And at that time, he's like, hey man, well, you're part of Onnit now, like officially, but you're training employees, which they got like basically a copay kind of thing, like where like Onnit covered half of their session and they paid half of it. So I was the Onnit trainer. And that process, I was like, hey man, but can I still train my clients? Cause I have all these clients. Like, oh yeah, dude, bring them in. And like, basically it was like rent free, for me. Yeah. So,
that's cool.
It's super cool.
So that was just Aubrey saying, hey, you do your thing.
Yes. Yep. Him being like, obviously a great friend and like someone that believed in me, something I always have to be grateful for because he believed in me and he gave me the space. And at that time, man, I was bringing like 100 people just kind of turning through, like, I was crushing it. Man. And then, Aubrey was just like, hey man, comes to me one day, like, after, I think it was like a year and a half of like me just crushing. And obviously in that same time frame, you got to realize this is like before like, I guess internet marketing or like, so I guess not internet marketing, but social media was kind of just like kind of evolving, right? Because this was back, 12 years ago, so 2012, 2013. So, I had some of the ladies like would post like with a kettlebell and on it in the background, and that would get a lot of likes. And then obviously Joe Rogan, being who Joe Rogan is, even then back then, he like, reposted something on that. And so that got a lot of likes, and it all kind of just grew, and then, so it was just cool to see. And then, so obviously we knew that the gym was a marketing tool for the brand. And Aubrey believed, was like, hey man, let's open up a gym. Let's open up a gym space. And so the space right next to the office was up for like, for like lease. Mm-hmm. And so then we were able to take over that space and like kind of open it up and build a gym out of it. But at the time, I was what I considered myself a personal trainer, right? I was kind of one of those guys that, was doing education, taking all this stuff, but I was just telling people how to work out, and like kind of like just being there for them and things like that. So I didn't know how to manage a business. I knew how to manage myself and my finances. And I'm not that good at managing my finances at that age. I was getting a lot of money and just like spending it, Yeah.
And you were like, what, around 30 then, or late 20s?
Yeah, late 20s, late 20s. And then, so I was like, figuring life out, like I said, I was broke. I started making all this money. For me, it was a lot, going from like zero to making over $100,000, in like, that time frame was like, whoa. So I had all this money and, obviously didn't spend that money that was wisely responsible, because a lot of those transactions were either like, could have like credit card or cash or checks. So I'd just get that money and like, sometimes I would like finish that my day and I'd go out. And like, I was a young guy, so I was like, I want to go out there and just spend that money on like
having fun.
But yeah, so then the gym kind of just like, from that point, obviously, let's open up a gym. And he knew that at the time, I didn't have the chops to like be a general manager, or that I just did it, So we brought in John Wolf, who was one of my really good friends, and obviously in evolving as a coach. So brought him in. He was the GM of the gym. I was kind of like, had the role of like, kind of head coach, assistant manager, or whatever that you would go. I thought assistant manager was just funny, but I was just a head coach. I was like the lead trainer, and we teamed up with DeFranco's gym, which was out of New Jersey, who had a really big name, who's trained some of the top athletes and like big in the WWE and football players kind of deal.
Okay.
So it was
what was the name of that gym?
So DeFranco's.
DeFranco's.
So,
okay.
So it was DeFranco's at Onnit Academy. That was the initial name that started, and from there, obviously. We were opened up the gym. It was like we're producing content, but the membership side was kind of rough, because it's like you obviously want to open up a gym and like kind of like pop right off the bat, and we're hoping like the names kind of like helped out, but it was to my credit, it was me that was bringing all the clients. It wasn't the names, because it's a gym, it's a gym, but I was bringing majority of the clients was like the people that I've already trained.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like the people that I was networking with in Austin. So at the time, I didn't really know my value, but obviously looking back then, I was like, oh, I did have a strong value then.
Yeah.
And obviously with that strong value, Aubrey and the company realized that, oh yeah, man, he's an asset. He's bringing people in. Obviously to grow the gym, which the gym wasn't like a primary business. It was more of a marketing tool for the supplements.
Right.
But they saw that, and that's how I was able to get like, obviously equity into the brand, because I was like, an employee, but then I got equity into the brand, got shares, which was the big thing, right? And then it got me in, and as we all know, like when you get equity in something, you're just banking on it. Hopefully,
that's right.
One day it turns into something, but
lottery ticket,
exactly. Yeah. And I'm glad that it did, but that was the beginning of it, man. It was like, that was over 10 years ago when we opened the gym. We're actually having our 10-year anniversary for the gym this Saturday. We're having our 10-year anniversary of the opening, which is,
I should stick around, man.
Yeah, man, you should. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty cool story. So I'm curious about your relationship with Aubrey. You had mentioned you guys are good friends. How did you guys become good friends?
And the way we became good friends, honestly, was through partying. Obviously we were young guys, at the time he was working for this company called Fleshlight, which was his stepdad's company. And obviously Aubrey's a really smart marketer. And, he was doing his thing there. And then, at that time, obviously with that type of company, you're out and partying and kind of doing the thing, And I was at the time I was training MMA. I was kind of training, and I had one of my really good friends. I saw as a brother is Roger Huerta, who was the first UFC fighter on Sports Illustrated back in the day. He was a big face,
Yeah.
So he was one of my really good friends that I would help train and work out with, and just kind of just got along with really well. And at the time, me, him, and my buddy Sean and Hugo, who passed away, it was four of us. We're all buddies, and we would go out downtown on the scene in Austin, Texas, and just get rowdy and rage and things like that. So Aubrey would see us and man, these guys are cool. And I was like, hey man, invited us to a party, and we literally met partying, and we just knew we just all got along really well. And from there, he just always invited us to parties, and we hung out, and it kind of just built that relationship of hey man, obviously at the time, Aubrey and Roger were doing really well, and they were able to help someone like myself that wasn't
to be included.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do, I was still putting in the work, doing my thing. Mm-hmm. And then, I always tell people, I wanted to be a fighter. That was my dream. I wanted to do it. But
so you were really serious about MMA?
Yeah, I loved it. I was more of a fan though, man. I trained, obviously wrestled throughout high school, started doing jiu-jitsu and all that. And I wanted to do it because I was, I've been into MMA since I was 12. Watched it. I used to be on the forums, Sherdog back in the day. Sherdog was the big forum where everyone was on. I'd go watch Pride FC at this guy down, my friend Jose, who's a Brazilian who loved MMA just in general, and I would buy it. I was a kid, man, so I'd order shirts Pride FC, that had the fist and the lightning bolt, and I would order those shirts, and I'd be going to Gold's Gym and working out, and people probably thought I was maybe gay or something because a Pride shirt, but no one really knew what it was,
right.
It wasn't mainstream. It was just out in Japan, so.
Right.
But he realized, he's hey man, you know what Pride is? And I was yeah, and we started talking me and Jose at the time I was at this point, I was probably 14, 15 years old. He was he's older by 10 years or so. Yeah. So he was 25, 26. He's hey man, we started talking about MMA and fighting and stuff like that. And he would invite me to his house. He actually lived right down the street from me. And I'd go watch Pride FC fights. Looking back at it, man, I was a 15-year-old hanging out with this couple just going watching fights that would cook for me. So it was awesome that that relationship through MMA, kind of, I was able to connect with someone and learn from somebody. And so growing up, I was a big MMA fan. I wanted to do it, but I quickly realized that man, it's a lot of wear and tear on the body. And then I realized that I loved working out. Mm-hmm. And then I started leading workouts for camps and things like that. And so I realized, oh man, this is more my avenue. It's helping strength and conditioning for fighters, training. I'm not getting all beat up and kind of working through it. And it's you kind of pick a lane because at the same time, at that time when that was going on, I was still going to school. I was a student at Texas State. Okay. And man, you can't do both. And trying to be a fighter and I'm going to school is you gotta pick a lane, And I was trying to do both. And go to school and then go train. And then when I go train, then when you get beat up, it's man, that's the worst feeling. Fuck.
Yeah. It's hard to function on other things. Yeah. We were just talking about this before, right? It's the balance between lifting and training MMA or jiu-jitsu in this case, right? Yeah. It's definitely been a challenge for me to figure out that balance because if you lift before you do jiu-jitsu, your body is taxed and you can't defend an armbar as well.
Exactly.
But if you lift after, then you're weak.
Exactly.
And you're not getting all your money's worth, right?
Yeah.
So it is a balance. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Maybe I'll continue to try things and learn without getting injured, right?
Yes.
But yeah, the same thing applies to the mental aspect and being able to function at actual high intensity jobs that require a lot of brain power.
Exactly. And man, through that evolution of learning MMA, training, all that stuff, that was my passion. And now I'm a big MMA fan, and obviously now it's more mainstream. I'm so thankful that it is because I used to man, dude, order,
it's pretty cool.
I would download fights from Japan if my friend didn't have them. I would do all this stuff. So it's cool to see what it is now. I believe is the biggest sport in the world. Obviously growing at a tremendous pace. And to me, it's so badass. I'm a fight fan. So to me, it's hell yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah,
but
that's it. Yeah, man. And I had the same conversation. I had Chris Lieben on my podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was one of the very first Ultimate Fighter show. Yeah, and he was kind of the wild kid on that show, right? So it was interesting getting his perspective on did you see MMA or UFC blowing up like it has today? And he's just like, well, back then I thought it was big.
Yeah.
And then it only got way bigger. Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, it is amazing to see this evolution with these different, like sports and industries. And, and back to Onnit and that story, I'm curious about that relationship between using Onnit Gym as a marketing tool for the company itself. Was there a long-term vision with that when Aubrey came up with that idea around, hey, this is going to be something we always have, and it's just going to be this one location to serve as like a flagship marketing place for in the city of our headquarters? Or did he have a longer-term vision like, hey, this could be like a different branch of the business where we have a bunch of gyms everywhere?
Mm-hmm. So going back to that, yeah, man, it was a marketing tool. I think it's like that was kind of just what it was, it was a marketing tool. Obviously we wanted to run as an operating business that wasn't like losing us money. So it was a marketing tool. I understood that. And I got it, and I knew like it just took a lot more effort to like build it up in order to be able to replicate it. As much as we wanted it, it just took a bigger team to be dedicated to that business. And it was hard because Onnit Labs was kind of like focused on supplements. They weren't really too focused on like the gym growing. They were just using the gym for marketing, which is great. Like it's just, I think now, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Onnit was one of the first supplement brands to do it, like the gym style. Obviously, First Form has it now. You have C4, all these brands that have a gym now for like content, all that. But I believe in 2012, we were the first, 2013, all those years, we were doing like the gym stuff with the supplements first. Yeah. So it was part of Aubrey's vision. And there wasn't like anything like they weren't planning on opening up with their gyms. They're just like, just don't sink this boat, But at the same time, yeah, it was a great plan, I thought it was great. It obviously provided me the space to grow. And in that process, going back to MMA, we had a lot of MMA influencers. So we paid, had sponsorships for fighters and all that. So it all tied into who I was. I love MMA, all this stuff. They're sponsored by Onnit. Joe Rogan's one of the owners at Onnit. Like it just all tied in. It was it's a great story, great story to like kind of be a part of. So. How
much did you get to overlap with Joe? Did you do any direct work with him?
Man, I met Joe. I've met Joe a bunch of times. Joe's super cool. He is what you see online. Super cool ass dude. But I want to I didn't get to really work with him. It was just more just like when he'd come in town, I've watched fights with him, I've like went to the UFC and I've done a lot of cool things where I was able to interact with him, but he's just such a busy guy, man. Even now more, but yeah, I'm just, glad that I, got to meet him and like, are cool. If he sees me, he'll tell me what's up and all that stuff. But like, I don't want to say like, we're like homies, but like Matt, he's cool, like, he's a cool dude. Like I see him, get to tell him what's up, but Joe's definitely the man.
Yeah. That's cool. And so that when the Onnit Gym was for employees only, when you got that going, the part that I'm now putting together is it was really being leveraged as not just a marketing tool to have a place where people can go work out and see the brand, but to have fitness influencers come in there and then represent the brand, right?
Yeah.
So did you have, like you've been sponsored by Onnit for a while,
yes,
right? Like you're a good example, but I'm sure there's others, and maybe you can name a few other athletes that audience might know. But what were examples of what they would use that space for with fitness influencers to promote Onnit?
So you had obviously like Michelle Watterson, who's a MMA fighter. She was awesome. She was part of the brand early on. You had Dustin Poirier, who was also, sponsored by Onnit. You had Mighty Mouse. You had a Cowboy Cerrone. You had all these people. Obviously, they have a big pull in their like audience, huge audiences, So at the time they weren't as big as they are now, but man, they were big, Like I said, to us, MMA was always big. It was just like not the whole like mass has found out about it. So the way they were used, like they would fly them into town, we shoot a bunch of content with them, and then they would like post that content on socials or like emails and things like that.
Dang. Okay. So I didn't realize you had all those big names. Those Mighty Mouse and Cowboy and Dustin. Yeah, that's... Man, so, okay, and then how did that translate so what year did they get acquired?
So we got acquired, I was like 3 years ago, going on 4 now.
Yeah. Okay, so right after 2020.
Yes, right after 2020. Right after during like pandemic era, so.
And then at what point did the Onnit Gym split off from the Onnit brand?
So that happened going on 2 years now. So that happened 2 years ago. Like I said, once they got acquired, obviously the gym was not profitable. It was a singing business. It was, and when, company, I think when big companies see that, oh, well, they got to make sure like focus on what's profitable, right?
Yeah, but that's not when you were running it, right?
No, at that point, when we got acquired by Unilever, I no longer was part of the Onnit Gym. So I got my payout with the brand.
Mm-hmm.
I try to stay on with the gym. I'm like, hey man, I'll still run programming. I'll still be part of this because when we were transitioning to the cell,
mm-hmm.
I gave up my duties as a general manager because it was just not really like what I excelled in, And we had Larry Maloney, who's the GM now to this day. He's just that guy that's just good at that kind of stuff.
Operations.
Operations, mm-hmm. Yeah. That wasn't my strength. I'm more of like a connection, marketing, face, kind of just like building community. That's my strength, right? And my strength is like getting people in the doors, but I wasn't like the being behind the desk and like doing all the, like I say, operations. Mm-hmm. So at that time we had transitioned. He had become the GM, and then I was just running like programming for the gym. And when Unilever kind of took over, they basically were like, all right, they split up. I'm still an employee of the gym, but obviously my role was like a obviously running the gym. I was an influencer, but not necessarily getting paid as an influencer. So that split came, and then the gym could no longer afford me. Like when they split, they're like, oh, well, we can't afford you to pay you. And like, I understood. And I was like, hey man, well, I'll help, I'll take maybe a price cut, because at the time when that happened, it might be a little confusing to some, but like Onnit Labs started paying me as a sponsor, but the gym could no longer afford me. So it was a different role, and it gave me wings to kind of do other things, right? So, at the same time, I have to value myself and like, okay, well, the gym doesn't want to pay me. I don't want to like take on this load. I have this other responsibility as a sponsor mm-hmm. to provide content, spread the word of the brand, but not necessarily be in the day-to-day operations. Mm. And, I would have been there the day operations if I was compensated for it, for my work, because, I've done training for over 20 years and I value my expertise and what I bring to the table. So I was like, hey, if y'all can't afford me, like, I get it. I gotta go my own way. In that time period, the gym, when I left, the gym dropped down to like 101 members, That's just, it's a detriment. It was on his last legs.
Wow.
Yeah, it was on his last legs. And then the month right before the kind of like the full-on split happened, they're like, hey man, like we need you back. Like, like we need you back on as like running programming. Mm. And in that sense, it's also confusing because at the time I was like helping the gym still by getting some traction. I started a women's group because I know how like building a strong women's community, it like breaks that intimidation factor, brings other people in. Women bring women, but women also bring men. So it's like you got to realize that, So
that's a good point. Yeah. I was going to ask that before because you talked about that women's group you had earlier. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, so I started the women's group for that reason, to try to help, because like, at the end of the day, even though I wasn't getting compensated, I still cared about the gym. I was like, oh man, like I still care. I don't want this place to go down and burn, Yeah. So
still your baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then a month, like I said, before the actual like split happened, they brought me back on. Like, hey, like we'll bring you back on. We can't pay them. I was like, dude, that's fine. I'll do it. Like I'm back on. I'll take what you guys can give me. Like, I just want to like give it my effort. And like I had needed to go. I needed something to kind of shoot for. Mm. And so I started doing that for the first month. And then when that first month, they offered me the gym. Like they're like, hey man, like Donna, like, hey man, do you have any interest in like taking over the gym? I was like, nah. I was like, no, it's like a sole responsibility of myself, because at the time, I was doing really well online and like, had my thing going, like, sponsorships. I'm good. Like why would I add another stressor onto my head, especially because I already knew how that business ran. Mm-hmm. And I'm not gonna have the funding of the labs, side of the supplements. So it wasn't really in my books at the time. I was like, man, look, my life is a lot easier. I'm building and growing on my own personal brand, Juan Leija. And it just wasn't ideal, but I was like, but I'll help, I'll still help. And, I was honestly very doubtful of like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know how much this has left. But then Aubrey was offered the gym as well. Obviously, he's the guy that started the whole brand and everything. Aubrey took it on. And in that process, Aubrey's like, hey, man, I'm going to take Onnit Gym back. I'm taking it from Unilever, but I want you to come on like full on sign. Like, I want you to like be the guy, I want me and my brother, Eric, so we're like, oh yeah, let's do it. We're down. Yeah. Like we're in it. Like, let's go. And Aubrey obviously invested a good chunk of money in our remodel. We put in sauna, better sauna, cold plunges, did an uplift on the gym, which was very needed. The equipment, everything, all the kind of the works, which kind of gave that revamp. And at that point, I was bought in. I was like, all right, I'm back in. I get my slice of the pie of the gym and like, I got to be smart about it. Like, I don't get the full risk, and from that entrepreneurship, like, it's like, I still got to be smart. I still got to be smart in the way when I tie it to something got to be good with the people that you're with, especially with someone that has more accessibility to funds and do things, can do it. So I jumped on, like, let's do it. We did it. I dedicated my, my time, like, you know what, I'm going to blow this up. I'm going to just crush it. Like, people think that the Onnit Gym is dying, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck that. This ain't dying. I'm gonna bring it back up. And, so I was teaching classes again, getting a lot of people. I build classes. That's what I'm good at, is building classes, building community. And man, we caught traction, obviously, in that process. And it wasn't just me, it was my brother as well. But also was Larry Maloney, it was Carlisle, it was the whole coaching staff, Danica, everyone kind of came together, as a whole team effort. So they let me do my thing. Like, let me just do my thing. You guys focus on all the other stuff. Let me do the content side. Let me build classes. Let me build community. And that process, obviously, with the influx of putting in money into the facelift, Alex Rowe, who is the CEO of, like, basically of the brand of Onnit Gym and Black Swan, good friend of mine as well. Working with him, all the pieces came together, and we built that traction up. And then, last year we were voted the best gym in Austin. And, there's other gyms. There's
other great gyms too.
Yeah, there's other great gyms here in town. And, like, I always tell people, like, I would always tell people, like, man, because I still have to be competitive. Competition, breeds excellence, right? You gotta work, And if, like, you're kind of, I like to stay in my own lane, like, worry about what I'm doing and what we're doing as a team. But at the same time, competition does make you better. And there were some other gyms out there, like, I'm not gonna name any, but, like, they were, like, kind of like, I would hear, like, a little chatter, like, oh, they suck, like, whatever. I've been doing this for a long time. I've gotten hate since I was in that little classroom in the gym. I literally have people hating on, like, oh, what does this guy want, and on it, all these other gyms, and, like, oh, just wait and see. And and I showed them, and then, like, it feels good, like, through hard work, showing it again. Like I said, we showed that we're the best gym. Now we have a community where we have over 800 members, but it's not just 800 members of, like, these are people that are in there all the time. These aren't just 800 members that just, like, randomly show up every now and then. These people are there all the time. Our community is really strong. And, I pride myself in that, because it's not all about, in business, yes, you want to make dollars. And I'm not going to say it's all about dollars, but it does matter. But we've built such a strong community. Like, man, it's honestly, to me, it's amazing what it has become. And the way, like, when people thank me and they're like, hey, man, thank you so much for, like, building this space, blah, blah. Oh, man, it's your space, man. You guys are part of this. And to me, it just makes me happy that I was able to be the seed of that. And now, with the growth, hopefully now, since we're not like tied up to a supplement brand, we can expand to other gyms, like, grow, like, put another location maybe here in Austin, maybe go to another city. Those are just talks that we've had. But at the end of the day, we're not going to go for that right away unless we know, like, hey, like, we got to get this model figured out. And obviously our model that we have is a big gym. It's not, I don't think it's replicable. It could be replicable in a smaller space. So the plan is, and the vision is to, like, expand into other gyms in 2025 at the, late 2025, 2026. And we want to share what we have, like, our community. We want to share what we do at Onnit Gym, something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah. Very cool, man. No, that whole story connects all the dots of the story from start to where we are today. I just want to ask you a more tactical question about your experience in these different eras of Onnit Gym, right? You're with them in one role, you're out of it. They brought you back when they were struggling. You came in hard and you took it over and you said, I really want to make this successful. And I'm curious, what was your biggest takeaway or lesson? You can share more than one, but of running a gym business.
My biggest takeaway of running a gym business is basically being present for people, like, making them feel like they're you're part of this team. Like, I always say, like, and, like, in my head when I say it, it sounds cheesy, but it's what I really believe. Teamwork makes the dream work. Like, and when you make people feel a part of the team, it's key. Because if we're just taking your fees, our membership is not a cheap membership. It's a higher price point membership, but what you get for it, man, it's a deal. Like people are like, oh, it's expensive. Like, man, when they go there, they're like, oh no,
I get it.
Yeah. So in order for, like, obviously break that barrier of like the price is kind of intimidating people, and it's like, or even like the people that you walk in our gym, like I hear a lot sometimes, like people are intimidated by the people that don't have a six pack, aren't jacked. The ladies aren't, like super ripped up. Like people get intimidated. I get it, but I can't tell you how many times someone has walked in through those doors and they didn't look the way they look, and now you see them, you're like, damn. Wow. Yeah. And so to give you the biggest takeaway from running a gym business is making everyone feel like they're part of the team.
And that goes back to the power of community, because I mean, I've always loved a good gym community. That's always been now that you've spent so much time talking about it over the past few minutes, it makes me think of what I look for when I go to a gym. And that's a huge part of it. It's not about the type of equipment as much as it's about the community. But you realize they go together. But I'm motivated to work out harder if it's a community of a bunch of really fit people or people who are on top of their shit, right? So I love how you spend so much time focused on community and how that's such a big skill set of yours. And you've made that like a huge part of your personal brand.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's cool, man. I want to, I mean, there's more like personal branding business questions I have for you.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about some of the differentiators around the fitness itself and the unconventional style that you have adopted, that this brand has adopted. And maybe we can talk about those together because they are parallel, right?
Yes.
But why don't you just share with us what is Onnit Fitness, your fitness brand, known for when it comes to unconventional styles that involve these different devices, kettlebells, and so forth?
So Onnit Gym obviously started as it was the mix of like unconventional tools, which was what John Wolf brought to the table and what the brand was, which we had to practice and had to learn. Like I started training kettlebells in 2003. So when I started training kettlebells, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just like ugly swing, like ugly
swinging these things around.
Yeah, just had not knowing what I was doing. And then through time, I learned how to use the tools, but it wasn't until John Wolf came on board and Mark DeGrasse too. Mark DeGrasse was the guy that first came on for the marketing for the fitness side. And he taught us how to use the tools better. And so did John Wolf. So we learned the unconventional side. So what encompasses Onnit Gym and like the fitness unconventional side of things is that we're not a gym that like excludes anyone from what they do. It's a hybrid of all training styles. So, I do lean in heavy on kettlebells. We do have maces and clubs, which I love, but I don't use them as much, but I have access to them. I can use them. But I love using barbells. I like using, ski ergs, rowers, bikes, conditioning equipment. Like that's the hybrid of everything. So like the unconventional approach is basically like the unconventional tools, but it's also the unconventional like approach to fitness, which now is getting a lot of traction with like the hybrid training. I'm like, I've been doing hybrid training forever, like, and so it's cool to see that now like it's caught on. But yeah, so to encompass what on a gym is unconventional tools. We're focused on longevity, unconventional tools, but you conventional tools, but focus on longevity because there's no point to be able to do like these amazing lifts or fast times, things like that, if you're hurting and you're beat up. So my goal is to be able to do this for a very long time, and not just for myself, to be able to teach others to do that as well. So what Onnit Gym is a longevity plan to strength and condition hybrid training that doesn't exclude anyone. Like if you like to do for like dance like a ballerina with the weight, go for it. If you want to be like this guy that deadlifts 700 pounds, go for it. You want to do backflips, walk on your hands, do it. There's a place for everyone. I think excluding people is like not cool. Gym community should be open to everyone because not everyone always has the same mindset in the sense of the way they want to reach their fitness goals. As long as the mindset of being better all aligns. And I think that's where Onnit Gym does a great job is like, we have the black kind of gym equipment, all that stuff that has the seriousness. But if you go to our gym, we have like gorillas with like third eyes on their head, like painted on the walls. And like we have all this art. And I think that's what makes us different than all these other gyms. Like, yeah, we do have that like, yeah, it's time to work here. But don't take yourself so seriously. Like, hey, this is like a space where you still want to have fun. Not like, oh, let's go hard. Let's go do this. We're going to hit this, that, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think there's a lot of these boutique gyms that are awesome and kill it and do a great job. But like, that's such a like a serious look, like it almost like it's almost like in a dodgeball, right? Like Global Gym, like it's not Global Gym. You have your big like Equinox and all that. Now you have like box gyms that are kind of doing that same look. And I'm not saying like we're like the average Joes, but we bring that mix of like, hey man, this is for everybody, and like we want to include more people. And I think the biggest thing that I say is don't be intimidated by what we do. We're just trying to help everyone, and longevity is the game. And I promise you that everyone that walks into those doors didn't always look like that. And when they come in and they change, you see it. And that's where the win's at.
Very cool, man. I mean, and that ties into your personal program with your brand, right? The Unconventional Gym Athlete Program, right? Yes. And you talk about 3 components. You have mobility, strength, and conditioning.
Yes.
But one thing that stuck out to me on your website that was interesting was how you applied this approach to any type of athlete, like whatever your goals are. And I'm really curious how you customize, taking those 3 core components in an unconventional style into account with somebody who maybe is training to be a UFC fighter, or someone who's training for a strongman competition or a high rocks event, versus just somebody who wants to live a healthy lifestyle, a stay-at-home mom, right?
Yes.
What is your, we don't need to get too detailed, but I'm just curious, how do you start the approach of learning about what someone's goals are and then creating a program for them?
So, my programming is all pretty like the same across the board. Obviously, if it's an athlete, obviously I got to tailor it more to what they're doing, but it's not going to differ much more. Cause like if it's an athlete, they're going to get better at doing the sport. I'm not trying to like, hey, I'm not going to make you a better boxer by having you deadlift, like, I'm just going to make you stronger. So your punch is harder. You're going to be able to have more strength and then build power. But at the end of the day, you're going to get better at boxing by punching, sparring, like hitting the bag like that, So same thing with a woman that's trying to lose weight, like, hey, that same program is going to work. We're going to squat, deadlift, swing some kettlebells, do some conditioning work. It's all the same. Like people try to overcomplicate it, like doing all these crazy movements. And yes, those movements do have a great beneficial, like, feedback in the sense of like they make you better, but in a wide range of people, not everyone has access to that. So I try to keep my programming basic through the formula that I've built throughout the years of learning from different education systems. Because what I built, what Onnit Gym is, it wasn't just me like, oh, this is what I created. No, it's like I learned, I took certifications with different like instructors. I learned like, obviously strength and condition from this person, strength from that person, sports performance from this person, nutrition from this person. And I pieced the things that I really liked that kind of like just flowed with my mind and the way I train and works. So I pieced all those together, and it's just like basically what makes Onnit Gym. So when it comes to programming, it's like, you got to make it progressive. You got to get stronger. You got to get faster. You got to get more condition. And at the end of the day, you got to get that mind right. At the end of the day, you challenge people to get their mind right. They're going to get better at everything. So
yeah, well said. So how about for the content marketing strategy you put out personally? You've built a following. You've had clients for a long time. That was a huge part of why Onnit Gym became successful early on, because of your network, right? And that obviously continues today with the work you do with people and clients. What is your approach, your thought process when you create content to post on social media, to put on YouTube? How do you think of all that? What do you like to put out there?
So the content that I put out is basically showing that I'm doing the work as well. I'm doing the work that I always tell people to do. Like, hey, look, I'm practicing what I preach. So my content strategy is basically practice what I preach, show what I'm doing. So I'm not just telling people like jump on this box, pull this weight. Like, look, man, I just turned 40 and I feel better than I was in my 20s.
Wow.
It's one of those things where like if I knew that had the knowledge that I have now, like when I was wanting to be an MMA fighter, I'd be like, oh man, like I would be able to like schedule my programming better, focus on my wrestling, focus on my striking, got the strength and condition section. I just know the pieces better. And I've trained fighters obviously for MMA fights. I was lucky to work with obviously Roger Huerta, Tim Kennedy, getting ready for fights.
Tim Kennedy.
So things like that. So I've worked with some people, it's like, it's cool. So knowing that, it's like, it's a big, like, yes, like, like I wish I knew that then. So yeah, man,
that's a powerful statement, by the way. That's incredible to say that you feel better now at 40 than you did in your 20s because of the knowledge you have.
Yes. And like I said, my body feels good. It's not just my brain. Like my body feels good. Like, I am stronger. I'm more conditioned. I'm more mobile.
But it's a result of that knowledge.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's all that knowledge that, I have to give credit where it's due because I got it from different coaches, different mentors. I learned that stuff and I molded into what, Onnit Gym is now, and it's still evolving. Like it's still growing. Like it's not like this system is set in place. You have to keep evolving because you're always going to keep learning. And as I get older, I notice like certain things. I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel the same. Well, I got to find a solution for that because the clientele that comes to the gym, they're all, some of them a lot older than me, and I got to find the solution for them to have a great training experience.
Yeah, man, I can relate to that. I had some pretty bad back problems in my early 20s, the herniated disc, and it was a big problem for me for years. There would always be a couple of days out of the year where I couldn't stand up, I couldn't walk, and I feel way better than I used to because I've learned to make those adjustments just by trial and error and learning what I can do, what I shouldn't do, how much I need to stretch before I work out, how much core I need to do before I touch a weight. And these are just like my personal little solutions to work around it. I feel like it relates to what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. So how about from more of a broad entrepreneurial perspective, is there any challenge you can point to as the biggest one you've experienced in your entrepreneurial experience?
I think right now it's betting on myself. I invest in different companies. Obviously being part of a brand kind of brings that protection of like you're protected because they like basically they're funding you, they get paying you a lot of money. So you're protected there, but betting on yourself, like my online business, like I was doing really well like 2 years ago, really well. But obviously when we talked about growing the gym, man, to do two things is hard. Like growing this gym back up, I have to be there in person. I got to be there day to day doing stuff. It was a detriment of my online business. So my online business is currently not doing as great as it was. And I know that, but I know like now I have to shift the energy back over here and find a better balance between the two. And so the biggest challenge has been like betting on yourself. Cause like I'll invest into something. I'm like, oh yeah, here you go. And then when it comes to me, I'm like, I'm betting on me, so I think that's been the biggest challenge. But now I've gotten comfortable because like I said, I'm revamping my online business, especially for 2025. I really want to really focus on building that community back up again. And the biggest challenge as entrepreneurs, like I said, betting on myself, believing in myself that what I do, I'm good at. And like people, have done the process with me training and, thousands of people like online and in person. I see hundreds of people weekly. So it's like, there's proof in the pudding. So I got to just make sure that I believe in myself and not doubt. So that's
cool, man. Yeah. Cause obviously you've had a lot of success, and for you to share that is really neat. It's neat for any person to hear that. Cause everyone struggles with self-doubt. And I think I had a recent guest say exactly that. It's the challenge they struggle with today, even despite being successful, is self-doubt. And to be able to learn how to sell and articulate your value and to recognize that, which I feel like just in this conversation you did earlier on, you talk about how your skill set is around building community. And then you have this unconventional approach, and you've learned so much about it to the point where you now feel better in your 40s than you did in your 20s. Right? These are all big things that are going to get people's attentions. Those are just 3 examples of, I think, big sticking points that make you valuable and reasons why you should believe in yourself and how you can help others. So to me, it sounds like you've really embraced what your value is in a pretty impressive way, despite struggling with self-doubt sometimes.
Yes. And like the thing is like, I didn't, when people are like the imposter syndrome, blah, blah, blah. Man, that's real.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
for
real.
sure.
Like, it happens all the time. It used to not happen really to me, but like when you're betting on yourself, you're like, it's a little bit more prevalent in the sense of you thinking about it. Like, oh, I'm like, what?
Absolutely.
So.
That's come up so much, by the way, especially with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because you really got to, at first, you start from nothing, and in most cases, and you got to operate as if you're here, but you're not really, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. So I'm curious about the next big goal you have in your journey. And, I want to hear that for you personally, but I also want to hear you speak on behalf of the gym and the expansion and what you see moving forward with that.
Yeah. So my next journey, my next goals, obviously trying to finish off the year strong. We're wrapping up 2024. Obviously there's some changes going on, obviously some good, some bad. I feel like I've been winning a lot and every time, I've been winning a lot, I feel like life's been good. Everything goes great. Obviously some curveballs got thrown at me in this last couple months, and I'm like, oh shit. Okay. But hey man, I'm good. Like I said, I was like, hey, and things are already looking brighter, it's like some things it just happens. It's you got to realize that you can't take, if you catch an L, you got to be like, hey, you got to get back up. And hey man, you're not down. I just took a little bit of a misstep, but everything else is going good. And I think, obviously closing off the year strong, it's already looking bright for 2025. So for 2025, what I want to focus on is obviously building more community online, obviously training, obviously being in line with the right brands that I'm at, obviously being part of the right brands and hoping to grow with these right brands. And that way we can give out the products that we're putting out, that people gets into the hands of the mass, so they know that this is going to get them better. Because at the end of the day, the Onnit saying of total human optimization is still going to carry through, because we want to make sure that everyone's not just performing better physically, but mentally as well. So for 2025, I want to build a stronger community online that can also integrate with my Onnit Gym community. So when I'm having people train online, hey man, we're going to have an event at Onnit Gym every 3 months or every 6 months. I'm still haven't decided what that goal is, but I also want to bring people in. Like you communicate with me online. I want you to come in person and see what I do in person and experience it, because that's what changes people's mind. That's one of the things that I feel like I have an advantage over like a saturated market, which is influencers, trainers online that are probably not credited to do the stuff, but that's the thing that I have the community. I have that. So I want to make that shine for 2025. And then in that shine, I want to make sure that we prep for hopefully the expansion of Onnit gyms and other locations, so people get to experience that worldwide. So
very cool, man. Well, one question I like to ask everybody on the show at the end is, if there's an entrepreneurial life hack that goes against the mainstream belief that you could share with the audience, what would that be?
Man, in my sense, it's like letting loose. Like, I think people are like, wake up at 4 a.m., cold plunge, sauna, read these many books, blah, blah, blah. Fuck, are you a robot? Like shit. Like I try to do that stuff sometimes. Like, what the fuck? Like my life is consumed with being like all these metrics and like things checking off the boxes. I'm like, fuck. So it's like
3 hour morning routine, right?
Yeah. Like I got 3 hours time. So I gotta get rolling. Like sometimes I wake up like, dude, I gotta I'm like, I got a short period of time to take a shower, brush my teeth, get like some type of like nutrients in my body and roll. So I think the biggest thing is like, don't take life too serious, man. Because you've heard all those stories of people that like they're so fucking highly driven, they crush it, they do this and that, and then they have a heart attack when they're 49 because they're just so stressed out and they're doing this. And I know like right now we're in an era where like people are talking more about like breathing, relaxing, the recovery stuff. But I think when recovery stuff is also having fun. Like if you're not having fun and you're like just focused on like being this super high achiever, then like I said, I've seen it with people that I've trained that are like multimillionaires, billionaires, like they're super successful and they're stressed and things like that. But then the training makes them feel better. And then they're letting loose and all that. And like the successful ones that are like successful, they have fun. Like, they're having a great time like that. You do some cool stuff,
Yeah.
So I think the life hack is like, don't take yourself so seriously, breathe, relax, have fun. Cause at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, and obviously I want to be at those high levels, like these my friends and all that stuff, people that I look up to. But at the end of the day, have fun, because you just never know when it's gonna be your last day.
Right.
And all that money in in the bank account don't mean shit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Such a good reminder. I love that one. Mm-hmm. And I just saw Aubrey post something recently related to that. He was throwing axes somewhere, and he was being asked about how important it is to still kind of act like a kid in a way of having fun, and how it's just such an important core part of life on a daily basis. So I love that you shared that. Is there anyone from your network who you would recommend I have on my podcast? Somebody who is an entrepreneur in this type of, with a background in health, wellness, fitness, or pro sports?
Right now that comes off the top of my head, obviously Brad Womack, who's one of my clients, who's obviously successful businessman, big into fitness. He's 52 years old, and he's like, he looks like he's in his 20s. Like literally, he's jacked. But obviously, he has the experience of the entrepreneurial mindset, and he practices what he preaches and does everything. So, and right at the top of my head, that's who just kicks off. So yeah, Brad Womack.
Nice.
And I could always make that introduction if you need it. So.
Awesome, thank you. Well, man, this is a really cool conversation. I think your story is fascinating with being a part of such an iconic known brand within the fitness supplement world with Onnit early on, and learning from, a very well-known and successful CEO and founder, Aubrey, and being a close friend of his, to then taking on the Onnit Gym and basically making that a successful, not just place to go work out and brand, but community. Mm-hmm. And I think that really sticks out about you from what I've learned about you just in our conversation, and the resilience you had through learning all these different parts of business and running a business, running a gym, running your personal brand, and then recovering from curveballs, right? So I really appreciate you sharing this story. This is really cool, Juan.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, man. What's your social media? How can people look you up, follow you?
So my social media is just Onnit, JUANNIT _24/7. I'm on there. Obviously you have an email list I create that's just revamping up a little bit more, sending content, workout stuff, recipes, all that stuff to kind of keep you going. But for now, just my IG is kind of like my biggest one. And hit me up on there or, click onto my programming at www.juanleija.com. And it's powered by Sambal, one of the apps that I'm a part of. And so, that's going to get a hold of me.
Awesome, Juan. Well, thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me. This is cool. I can't wait to go check out the gym.
Let's do it.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Nichols and Dimes Show. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and follow my Instagram page at Nichols and Dimes. The podcast Instagram page is at Nichols and Dimes Show. And please like any of the videos you come across on either platform and leave a comment, leave feedback. It helps me to improve and innovate and to continue to scale and bring more interesting guests to the Nichols and Dimes Show. Thank you all for the support, and we'll see you next time.